If you took a random person off the street and asked them to draw what they think the relationship between the skill of a competitor and the time they put in was, I bet they'd draw something like this. It'd be mostly linear, with the slope being something talent, with these periods of no improvement when we're taking breaks from the game. And yet, if you asked anyone who competes to draw the same graph, it would probably look something like this. The life of a competitor is not so clean. There are periods where I've remembered improving with leaps and bounds, where everything has felt fun and exciting, and I felt myself cruising around obstacles. Nothing could stop me. And then there have been periods where I've looked back on the last few months of play and have been like, honestly, did I get any better? It feels like as a competitor, skill never really fits neatly into these nicely linear buckets, and looks more like jagged, crazy curves that are really hard to predict and manage. Consistency is this wild problem that affects every competitor, across every discipline I've ever had a passing interest in. I've never heard a more common complaint than, I'm just playing bad today.
I play super well in friendlies, but I can't seem to make it work in tournament.
I don't understand why I can't hit these ledge dashes today. I was doing it just fine yesterday.
I think people who don't compete regularly don't really understand how difficult it is to be an incredibly consistent player, and just assume that it comes easily with a bit of time instead of being a defining standout feature of some of the greatest players that have ever lived. But every time I enter a tournament, it feels like I'm opening a crazy bag of worms. Sometimes I'm over-caffeinated, sometimes I'm under-caffeinated, sometimes I'm really warmed up, and sometimes I'm playing with cold hands against a character I have very little matchup experience against. I've talked about this on the channel before, but it is really, really demotivating to not be able to get consistent, high-quality feedback for these endeavors that take so much of our time and mental energy. The idea that we can be practicing, grinding, and learning, and our results can still resemble a slot machine with no rhyme or reason is frankly frustrating. And yet, it's not as if tournament results don't matter. In fact, whenever I talk to veterans, they're always talking about how one of the most consistent themes of players who improve rapidly is regularly attending events and playing tons and tons of serious matches, weekly and even sometimes more frequently than that. And so even with all these wildly jagged lines, it seems like the optimal strategy isn't to wait until we're feeling like all the stars are aligning, but even to aggressively play serious matches in these more mess up states where we're not feeling up to par. So what's the deal here? I think we need to revisit these models, and in particular, the simple idea that we have this one-dimensional skill axis. Skill is not this simple concept that just goes up and down and perfectly summarizes all that a player is. If we really wanted to quantify what makes a player skilled, we would probably start with the large buckets, punish and neutral. I guess we can throw in recovering and edge guarding too. And each of these become different for each character we play against, and these are usually stage dependent and are even affected by percent ranges and where we are on stage. And suddenly, the simple concept of skill has turned into a branching, hyperdimensional beast. If we have two fox mains, one of which is really good at reaction tech chasing space animals, but has no idea how to play against floaties, versus a patient fox, who seems to really understand slower matchups, but gets run over by foxes and falcons, which player has more skill? This is just such a hard question to answer, and yet every competitive community I'm a part of is forced to take a stab at answering this with some sort of hardened numerical system. We have rankings and tournament results. Other games have ELO and MMR systems. But even this formula with an insane number of axes on which to measure competitors isn't enough when we start taking into account literally anything that happens out of game. Players don't remain constant. They have good days and bad days. If I were to draw out a complete breakdown of my skill on an average day, it would look wildly differently from when I have cold hands and didn't manage to get any sleep last night. But of course, good day and bad day aren't concrete concepts and exist wholly on a spectrum. How do I play with 9 hours of sleep? What about 10? What about 8 hours and 59 minutes and 58 seconds? Skill is actually this three-dimensional monstrosity that is overwhelmingly complicated. We can decompose the games we play into these nuanced mini-games that we can each play at varying levels of competence. And then there is this third axis that we often forget about, which is simply how we're feeling and playing that day. I think one thing I've really started to internalize over the course of losing infinity tournament sets of Smash is that we often think of ourselves as a monolith. I have good tech skill. I have a good punish game. I am good versus Marth. And this simple sounding word I is this oversimplified summary of a bajillion possible mental and physical states we could be in when we sit down to play a tournament set. It's one thing to be able to hit our tech when we're in a totally calm state of mind, sitting by ourselves with lo-fi music playing in the background with 100 attempts to get it right, and another entirely to hit our tech when we're stressed, because a grizzly bear just broke into the venue and has just mauled to death all of the top players. Part of being a serious competitor is not only acknowledging that I won't be playing the same way every day, but even embracing it, and actively playing and measuring myself even when I'm not feeling that great. Because the moments where I'm playing like utter doo-doo are these unique opportunities to improve a part of my skill that I wouldn't be able to do solo in my apartment on Unranked. Hyper-consistent players like Armada have bad days too, but his skill is just so incredible across the board that even on these bad days, it's incredibly hard to notice. So when we say things like, I'm playing poorly today, I think we should take a step back and think about what this actually implies. Poorly means that we're playing worse than the perceived expectation, a normal state of play that we're comparing ourselves to. But I think this is an issue with framing, because sure, maybe yesterday I was playing hot and hitting all my combos, and today I didn't get much sleep, I'm feeling groggy and missing literally every input. It's not that I've just magically gotten worse overnight, it's literally that I'm being measured on another aspect of my skill. So I should try not to get frustrated and embrace this, because maybe down the line I'll have another tournament where I'm feeling hella sleepy, and working hard and trying my best now will still pay dividends down the line. Thanks for watching.